What is up, everybody? This is the first of the 4 cars I'm comparing, all 4 of which have a Honda VTEC engine. This is the 2006 Honda Civic Si. So while I will admit this does have the lowest horsepower and torque of the 4 cars we are comparing, it's not quite the slowest. It is a little bit faster than the Acura TSX. We're going to be comparing these in order of engine displacement. So after this we'll look at the Honda S2000, then the Acura TSX, and then lastly we'll finish off with the 3.7 liter Acura TL. But with the Civic Si here, we are dealing with 8000 redline in this Honda built K20 engine, 2 liter. The torque for the K20 is about 139 pound-feet, and that's achieved at 6100 RPMs. The horsepower for the K20 in the Honda Civic Si is 197, and that reaches peak horsepower at 7800 RPM, so really high up there. These engines are all similar, where you have to rev them up to get the most out of them. Granted, the one we'll look at later, the Acura TSX, it has a 2.4 liter and a little bit more torque, but all of them, you get the sweet spot when you're up in the higher RPMs, at least above 5,000. But yeah, all these cars are reasonably quick. None of them are slow. So I'm just gonna do a little pull here. So 2006 Civic Si. Quick. I've read somewhere that the 0 to 60 on the Civic Si is 6.7 seconds. So it's pretty quick. You know, it kind of competes with the Volkswagen GTI in quickness. But a good thing about this car is it does handle really well. It's a high compression engine. Also, it's a light car, around 2,800 pounds, so that really helps. So it's very agile. I mean, the benefit of this car is they're usually cheaper than a new Acura TL or a Honda S2000. Those are simply just more expensive. Even the TSX might be a little bit more expensive unless you get an old one. Like the one we're going to be looking at is a 2004, so that's definitely cheaper than this 06 Civic Si. So there was the Civic Si acceleration and exhaust sounds. Up next is the 2001 Honda S2000. So here we are in car number 2, the 2001 Honda S2000. Being made in 2001, that means this is the AP1, which means it's probably the more dramatic out of the S2000s, being that the red line is 9,000 RPM. So this car has got a 2-liter, just like the SI, but it's got the F20 Si. So this engine has got even more power than the K20. The K20 has 197 horsepower than the Civic Si that we drove, but this one is working with 240 horsepower. So also the S2000 has 153 pounds-feet of torque. So it doesn't have much torque, but it's still got more than the SI, which has 139. Definitely handles really well around those tight corners. No body roll at all. So out of the 4 cars, it's probably got the best handling. And it's rear-wheel drive, so it's a perfect recipe for having a lot of fun. But definitely as you approach that red line, even though there's not a ton of torque, it's still a really dramatic experience. And that's what a lot of buyers of this car look for. There's a lot of character to this car. They don't make it anymore. They didn't make it a ton of years. And they're getting pretty rare. They did a really good job making this engine powerful. With 2 liters of displacement, you get 240 horsepower. That was ahead of its time, and it's naturally aspirated, so that is pretty hard to do. Let's take these corners a little fast just for fun. Just push the car through these corners aggressively, and you don't really feel like you're in trouble even at a high velocity. It's really confidence inspiring. So out of all of the 4 cars, I would say it has the best handling, and it's probably the second fastest. The TL is rated at 5.2 0 to 60. The S2000's at about a 5.7. I'm not saying I can do that, but that's what it's rated at. Also, this shifter has the shortest throws of all the cars. Then I'd say the Civic Si has the next shortest. Then after that, the TL has kind of pretty much average throws. The TSX, unfortunately, is an automatic, so we can't compare. Look, we're only going 50 miles an hour there. So really, you can have a lot of fun with this car without really breaking any rules. We're just accelerating like any other car to get to the same speed as approaching traffic. And, you know, the car is just really exciting to drive normally even. Plus, it's the only one of the 4 cars that comes in a convertible. So if you want a convertible, this is your number 1 pick. But where this car lacks is practicality, of course. There's only 2 seats, and the trunk space is abysmal. But if you're just looking for the most fun out of all the cars, this one is your best bet. But it's kind of on the one end of the spectrum where it's all fun and no practicality. So if you're looking for a compromise, I would say get the Acura TL. And if you you want something that's cheaper, that's a compromise, get the Civic Si, because you can get a sedan one of those, and that's, you know, just as practical as the TL, besides the fact that it's not all-wheel drive. Oh, we got a traffic jam here. I'm on the highway now. I'm gonna rev it under this bridge just for fun.
VTEC engaged.
And odds are you're not going to be able to have a phone call in this car. Even with the top up, it's just a little louder than the other ones. As far as the looks go, you know, it's all subjective. I'd say that this might be the best looking out of the four cars. It's definitely not too aggressive looking, but it's aggressive enough. The curves are good. It's got that long front where the engine is and short back. Classic roadster stance. The TL, you know, that's more aggressive and sharper, but some say that the front, the beak on the front might be a little too aggressive. The Civic Si, you know, the interior is really cool, I think, but the exterior just looks a little out of proportion. A really short front, and it still kind of looks like a regular Civic. It's not bad looking, it's just not super sporty. And the TSX, I'd say that one, it looks sharp. It doesn't look aggressive or sporty. It doesn't really look like anything, but it just looks reasonably good, like compared to other normal sedans. The TSX has a pretty conservative appearance, but it's classy, and I like it. So all four of them, they have something to offer. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this quick overview of the Honda S2000. Moving on to the next car in the lineup, which is so ignore these stupid sunglasses. I found them in here. They make my face look a little weird. But anyways, the next car in our VTEC comparison is the 2004 Acura TSX automatic. Sorry guys, it's not a manual like the other ones, so it's going to be a little bit different with some of the details, but most of the stuff still holds true. So out of the four, this one is the second biggest, and it has the second biggest engine. But really it's not saying that much because, okay, so first off, the TL, 2010 TL super handling all-wheel drive, that one is a pretty big sedan. This one is a pretty small sedan, I would say. Not a ton of legroom. It's pretty light, and the trunk space is all right. So it's, you know, it's a medium-small sedan. And then of course the Civic Si, the one I had in the comparison, was a coupe, so that's pretty small. And then obviously the Honda S2000, that's tiny because it's a convertible, you know. So this car is the least extreme, the most reserved. It's the least quick. So even though it has a few more horsepower than the Civic Si, it's just you know, a little bit slower. But that's not necessarily the end of the world, because out of all of them, this might be the one many people would choose as their commuter, because it's, you know, it's a little less efficient than the Civic Si, but you can get around 30 miles to the gallon when you're cruising at, like, you know, 60. So 30 is pretty good. The Civic Si might be able to get like 32 or something like that. But then the TL, that one gets like 20 something because it's a bigger engine and an all-wheel drive, a lot heavier. So you have that going for it. And this one, I'd say right now, if you wanted to buy any of these, this one would probably be the cheapest, most affordable, because the Honda S2000s, those hold their value. Civic Si's also hold their value pretty well. And also Acura TL, the one in the comparison, that was obviously a newer one, but even still, if you found a 2004 Acura TL, it's considered a little more of a luxury car than the TSX. Because the TSX is a little more, it's like in between the RSX and the TL, where it's, you know, in between in size, and in terms of luxury, it's in between too. In between in refinement. But I don't really have many complaints with this car. I mean, you don't buy it to be your sports car, you buy it to be a daily driver that isn't like really slow. And since this is the 2004, I'd say for the year, it's pretty nice in here. Everything in here, the materials have all held up. It's got over 150,000 miles on it now. And pretty much everything in the interior that you look at and that you touch is high quality. So as far as the VTEC goes, like I said, this one's not as dramatic as any of the other ones. So when you step on it, there's no like aha VTEC moment. It's pretty much you're going along, and it just gets faster and faster, and kind of feels a little linear. It never, when it kicks in, it's not really dramatic. I'll put the figures below on the screen of like when it has peak horsepower and torque, at what RPMs those happen. He's coming. Now let's see about that exhaust. So, there you have it. The 2004 Acura TSX. Out of all four of these cars, it's probably the best commuter car on a budget. This is the fourth and final car in our VTEC comparison. This is the 2010 Acura TL Super Handling All-Wheel Drive. And this one has the 3.7 liter V6 engine producing 305 horsepower. Or it produces 305 horsepower at 6,300 RPM. So that's pretty high because the red line is at about 6,700 RPM. So the red line isn't as high on this car as the other ones. Just to recap, the Civic Si red line is at 8,000 and the S2000 is at 9,000. That's the AP one because it's the 2001 version. And I'll have to get back to you on the Acura TSX red line. I'll post it right here. The torque of the 2010 TL is 257 pound-feet. And that's at 5,000 RPM. Pretty high RPM for it to reach its peak torque as well. So all four of these cars that I'm showing you with the Honda VTEC kick in at high RPMs. But this one is the biggest of the four engines. So we had a 2-liter with the Civic Si, a 2-liter with the Honda S2000, a 2.4-liter with the Acura TSX, and 3.7, so much bigger than the other ones, because all those are 4 cylinders, and this one is a big V6. Even for a V6, it's kind of big. So now I'm just gonna show you guys a quick acceleration of this car. But I tell you what, the 2010 Acura TL pulls really nice. So I'm going to go over the pros and cons of each car really quick to recap. So the Honda Civic Si, pretty peppy, pretty fun, pretty practical, pretty cheap. Not super fast, but not really slow either. The numbers make it seem like it's slower than it is. But overall it's pretty fun, but not crazy sporty, handles nice. Next, the Honda S2000. Not super practical, only has 2 seats, tiniest trunk ever. Not great in the winter. can't really drive it all year round. Pros, it's really fast, really fun, very thrilling and exciting to drive, and it handles probably the best of all four. Next up, Acura TSX. Cons, it's not really fun to drive. Cons, it's not super fast, it's not as fun as the other ones. Pros, it's pretty efficient, relatively practical, and not that expensive anymore. Last on the list, Acura TL. Super handling, all-wheel drive, 3.7 liter. Pros, practical, fast, handles well, can be driven all year round. Cons, it's a little bit more expensive if you get a nice one that's newer. So yeah, in the comments below, let me know which one of these four you would want, or which one of these four you like best. Or offer another Honda engine that you think is really good. So there you have it.